Hey everybody, welcome to the Really Late Show. I'm Chris, got Robert with me. And Robert, good to talk to you again, man. I started a new job, my schedule's changed, and now my schedule's getting to a regular standpoint. It's good to do this again. Glad you're here.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Chris. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, so for our millions of viewers who are like, what happened to Robert? What's going on? He's been here just trying to figure out our regular job, but it's going good. So we'll figure it out. But hey, we're not here to talk jobs or time. We're here to talk some goofy pop culture fun stuff. And to start out, this isn't much goofy. It's a little bit more of a serious story, but we definitely need to talk about it. Gene Hackman passed. I think it's been about a week ago now that news of his death came out, and a shock. I mean, I think I don't know if Gene Hackman was one of the greatest actors of all time, but he definitely made a ton of noteworthy films.
Oh,
Robert, I heard someone talk to someone's like, I can't remember a bad Gene Hackman movie, and you're more of a movie guy than I am. I mean, there was no swings and misses, right? They were all like home runs, right?
I don't think you're accurate when you say that. I don't think Gene Hackman would say that either. I've been kind of in a bit of a Gene Hackman rabbit hole this past
Okay.
week because he was an incredible actor. And if you hear interviews, you look at, I was watching some interviews with some of the people he shared screen with, people like Kevin Costner, Morgan Freeman, all saying that like he was the best actor they'd ever worked with. But they tell stories too, and he wasn't a big fan of some of the work he was doing, and I think there was at least a period where he talked about taking money for the paycheck, or taking movies for the paycheck, because he's going through a divorce, and had to pay alimony and things like that, and so I think he's done some paycheck roles over his career, but he's also hit quite a few home runs as well. You know, see what his one of his worst movies was probably, unfortunately, his last movie, which he did a movie with Ray Romano called Welcome to Mooseport,
Yes.
which was a pretty which was pretty critically panned, a stinker of a movie. But he hadn't acted for 20 years. He had retired. The story of his death, obviously very sad, very sad circumstances there. But he had left Hollywood, just to sort of decided, I guess, that he was sort of done being directed, and just the stress of the whole thing was too much for him. I was curious to find out that he, after leaving Hollywood as an actor, um, uh, had a little bit of a career as a novelist. He wrote some books
Hmm.
after that, a series of novels. One western, one kind of thriller. They kind of followed the same sort of, like, the books he wrote. Were similar to some of the movies that he did. Like he's known for doing some work in westerns and thrillers, intrigue, murder mysteries, things like that. He wrote some books along those same lines, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, going down this Gene Hackman rabbit hole over this past week, watching some of the movies that I really appreciated him in. I uh, Probably one of the first movies I'd ever seen him in, of course, was the old Superman movies with
Yeah.
Christopher Reeve. He played Lex Luthor in those. But some of the probably greater roles that he was in, I watched again. Hoosiers, a great movie with Dennis Hopper, and I heard a story about the director of that movie, and he told a story about Gene Hackman and Dennis Hopper, and I guess Gene Hackman wasn't a big fan of that movie while they were making it. Like, he didn't think it was a great script, or he didn't think it was going to be a success. And there was a scene, I guess, where during a montage where the team is winning, and it's just sort of like it's there's a music playing, and it's just different scenes of like like the action on the court, basketball court, and then showing Gene Hackman and Dennis Hopper on the sidelines sitting together and talking. And there was a scene, I guess, where Dennis Hopper reacted to something that Gene Hackman said and kind of slapped his leg and was kind of laughing. Dennis Hopper later told the director that what was happening in that moment was that Gene Hackman had leaned over to him and said, I hope you've handled your investments wisely, because neither you or I are going to get another job after this movie. This is going to be the last thing we ever do, because it's going to end our careers. And of course,
Yeah.
it's a well-loved movie, well-loved sport, one of the greatest sports movies probably ever made, and very well thought of, and critically successful. So, what you have a Gene Hackman movie that you relate to, or anything?
Well, a couple thoughts. And, I remember watching Welcome to Mooseport. And, if I would sit here and tell you that Welcome to Mooseport was a fantastic, riveting movie, laugh me out here and come beat me up, because that would be a ridiculous comment. But, I like the goofy stuff.
Yeah.
There was relevance to it. Yeah, it wouldn't have been in Gene Hackman's top 50 movies he made, but, there was relevance. It was all right. Hoosiers, I liked. I thought it was interesting. My nephew, I almost forgot what he be to me and family wise. He plays for Northeast Ohio high school basketball team, and it was interesting. I don't know if you know this. They have a museum where the old basketball court used to be that was featured in the movie. Now, again, it was lit to be more old school and everything else. It looks a little different if you go there today. But they have high school games that play at that arena. So over Christmas break, his high school team was, you could rent the arena and move a game over there. So there was a game up there, it was there. And it was funny, this kid's sophomore in high school, so he's got no idea what Hoosiers is, but they would take him out to see the movie the night before. And then they would come play at the same arena where they filmed, the local games for Hoosiers. So it's kind of neat to see how that movie lives on. You know what I mean? And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny for a high school sophomore. They're like, "What? This is an old movie. What's going on here?" But it's kind of see how that acts. You think about him. There's a lot of what do you call it? Action movies where he played the bad guy, like the French Connection and other stuff like that, where he did really good. I'm a Jennifer Love Hewitt fan, and remember he was in the Heartbreakers.
Oh yeah,
I forgot about that.
Comedic, or a comedic role for him. He's done some comedy, done some action, like you said. Like he was in a number of movies that were based on John Grisham novels, so some legal thrillers, some courtroom dramas, and like I said, westerns. He was fantastic in some of the westerns. Probably one of my favorite roles of his was the character he played in Unforgiven, that western with Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman. Excellent movie, came out in 1992. That's a great one. He was, he had range as an actor. He did quite a bit.
I get sad, and you referenced this, as we learn details about the death. It was sad. And again, he's a human being. He can do what he wants to do. And he kind of wanted to get away from the Hollywood scene and everything. But, he died of heart disease. His wife died from another disease a couple days earlier. And, just the circumstances of the death. It was just, unfortunate. There was some disease in the family and everything. I know that makes me sad. I don't know what you do. I mean, he's a human being. We can all live where we want. We can all choose, who we want to be around, and what's convenient to us and what's not. But I just get sad the way he died. I mean, thankfully there was no bad circumstances or there wasn't any untimeliness of it or whatever. But it was still just, you think of, man, what a great movie actor. What a awful way to go.
Yeah, 95 years old, lived a long and rich life, had a rich career. But I think the thing that I think saddest about it is that, yeah, like, his wife and he both passed days apart, and he was also, I guess fairly progressed with Alzheimer's disease, and was probably there in the home after his wife had passed. Probably very confused, and it's just a sad thing. Someone that um, someone who projected such strength on screen, and then to be in a sort of a vulnerable, sort of frail, um, you know, situation like that at the end of his life, and to not have somebody check on them sooner than they did, and maybe they would have been able to prevent something, but just to have somebody with you at the end of your life, you would, none of us want to die alone like that. That was just a sad situation.
Well, and you can talk about this in sports and other things too. Everyone makes a lot more money. And granted, Gene Hackman during his earlier his career, he was probably making more money than the typical Joe job or whatever. But now you're making enough money to get set you for life and everything. I
Yeah.
wonder, Robert, and I'm well. Let me just say it. You can judge me for whatever I'm going to say. How do we take care of these people a little bit better? I had a dumb joke, and again, I was trying to be funny. It's probably not really that funny. I was like, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame up in Canton, Ohio, when you get nominated there, you should be able to stay in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So there'd be like this wing of Hall of Famers where, they're being taken care of and everything. And again, when you're in the Hall of Fame, it doesn't mean you're old and decrepit. I mean, you could be a younger guy or whatever the case might be. But we're taking care of these guys. And again, we're in a free country. You have the right to live or wherever you want and everything else. I just get sad. Hopefully he had the care he needed. And again, he had his wife. Sadly, his wife unfortunately died of another disease beforehand. I know stuff happens, but I just kind of sit here and think, is there something better we could do? I mean, we don't need a nursing home of old Hollywood actors, but the thought that he was at some New Mexico place and he's sitting there for a couple of days alone, it just, I don't know, it just makes me sad.
Yeah, it's a very sad story.
Yeah, it's tough, but no, I like how people remember him. I mean, again, you kind of hope that, I don't know. We talk about this in our family. Sometimes we remember people after they go, but I think Gene Hackman, although he was in the movie for a long time, his movies live on. People remembering him, and after he died, yeah, Robert, like what you did. You're checking out his films, kind of remembering his life and everything, and it's good. And I guess that's a challenge to Hollywood actors now. Make some good movies. I know, obviously, not everything Gene Hackman made was fantastic, but man, so many great, solid movies and life well lived, a movie career well lived too.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah, very, very good. We're a little late on this, but this was huge news, and we definitely need to touch on this. A few weeks back, Saturday Night Live held their 50th anniversary. Robert, I didn't see every moment of it, but I checked out a little bit of the concert. I think it was like the Friday night before and the actual show. I was impressed. I was a little afraid that it was just going to be tributes and look back where the show would be 3 hours of, hey, let's give a speech about Will Ferrell or give a speech about Warren Michaels or something. No, they were bringing everything back. It literally was like a 3-hour all-star show where they had current cast members, older cast members. I thought, I mean, not all the sketches were my favorite, but we all like different stuff. But I liked how it was presented. I think overall it was a home run. What did you think?
I think so too. I think they did a fantastic job. I mean, just the star power that they were able to bring into that theater for this, and they did a lot to highlight cast members that came back to reprise some of their roles and some of their skits that they'd done that they were famous for, and then bring back a lot of the celebrity hosts over the years, all the people that have been on the show, musical acts. Cher at like what 75 years old or something, performing in that concert, singing If I Could Turn Back Time. Phenomenal. Like Cher is just a legend. And that, and just um who are your favorite return cast members? I mean, I didn't catch all of it either, but I watched a good bit of it. And I grew up on SNL in the 90s. I've watched it since. I mean, on and off, like in the 2000s, and I see clips now. I don't really sit down and watch the full show, but probably my heyday in terms of experiencing Saturday Night Live was during the 90s, when the cast was, Sandler and Chris Rock and David Spade and Chris Farley and Phil Hartman and Kevin Nealon and that whole crew. And so Adam Sandler came back and did a new song, sort of a tribute to the 50 years of SNL, which was cool. I thought it was interesting. Bill Murray did a skit where he came on the Weekend Update and ranked the Weekend Update hosts, which I thought was very funny.
Well, and you and I both are fans of Norm Macdonald. I loved how he got some shout outs. I mean, Sandler
did
referenced him in the song. I think Norm was like second, if I remember right, in Murray's rankings.
Yeah, this number one pick was sort of a joke too. He gave it to his brother Brian Duell Murphy, but I think the context of that, the sort of the joke aside, I think Norm is, I think, the best Weekend Update host.
Well, you can make the argument. I know
think
part
you can
of
make the argument.
Well, part of his top 10 was a little jokey, like with his number one. So if Norm was number two on his list, was Norm really his favorite? You never know.
Yeah, I think so. I think you can make that connection, draw that assumption.
Well, and I've read some stuff in the past where they were like, well, why did they keep going back to the well? Because, the 50th anniversary, it's not like, wow, this is the first time we saw Will Ferrell back. I mean, he's come back at times, and other people have come back. Honestly, Robert, I kind of like that, man. And I think maybe, and you never know how long Saturday Night Live's going to last. There were some rumors saying maybe it's done after its 50th year or whatever. But I'd like to see it continue. And I'd love to see, not just as like guest host, sometimes you see, people just show up and play. And it's nothing against the current cast. There's some good people in the current cast. But make Saturday Night Live a celebration of the best of comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where, spotlight, and obviously people, some people aren't going to come back every week. I'm not saying, have Sandler do things every week, but leave the door open. Say, hey, Sandler, you want to stop by and do a sketch? Door's wide open for you. So if he's in New York, he could do that. They're starting to do that a little bit more. I'd like to see him continue that. Because
I agree. I think that I think it's a formula that they're starting to realize what really works, and it feels like a lesson learned kind of thing. Like they've realized that they can do that more and more. You're seeing people like Mike Myers showed up to play Elon Musk in a cold open one recently, and you see like Andy Samberg come back and do some of his Lonely Island stuff, which is great. And the way that these old cast members, they come back and they interact really well with the new cast. There's a lot of stuff that the new cast is doing as well too that works really well for the old cast, to come in and play a part in, and it's I think it works. I think they'll continue to do it. I certainly hope they do.
Well, and I've heard through the years, sometimes if you knew a cast member with Saturday Night Live, you get freaked out and you kind of said saying, oh man, it's hard to have a sketch on, like if I'm a new cast member. And maybe to that point, it's harder if Mike Myers just shows up or, whatever the case might be. But look, we're in a competitive society, man. Nothing's given to you,
Right.
And I think overall, it'll make Saturday Night Live a better thing. I don't know. I'm pretty excited about this. I think it's a good thing. Music, I'm not as much a music guy as I used to be, but like seeing like that Cher, um, oh, what was it? Nirvana made kind of like a surprise, reunion. They had somebody else sing for Kurt Cobain's part. I thought that was cool. They had they're not the greatest band, Robert, but being from Northeast Ohio, Devo made its return. I don't know if you noticed that Devo did a song, and again, some people make fun of Devo, and probably rightfully so, but it was kind of nice too that, yeah, you went to the well for the old school, iconic Cher and everything else, but you went to some of the goofier stuff too. And all in the concert, they had a tribute to all of the goofy songs too. I don't know if you saw that part. They brought back Chris Parnell. How about
I
that?
saw that. Yeah, yeah. They did the Lonely Island
Yeah,
montage, with Andy
yeah,
Samberg and Chris Parnell and Lady Gaga. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, they, I don't know what Michael Bolton was doing, but he definitely
yeah,
should have showed up for that when they sang the Captain Jack Sparrow song.
yeah.
But they didn't have Michael Bolton. I was surprised.
Yeah, he was probably busy. Well, there was a couple of missions that you thought about, like a really great cast member after the time we talked about was like Bill Hader, and I guess Bill Hader had some obligation he couldn't get out of, and he didn't come. But people were like, man, like Stefan would have been great and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, it was good. Like I said, I loved what they did with it. I was afraid it was going to be like a Academy Award boring tribute, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I could take that. But no, I thought it was good. And yeah, I understand some people saying hasn't run its course. Well, if we keep going to the best of and just sitting there and saying, hey, even if you're not in Saturday Night Live anymore, come up with a good sketch and bring it. I mean, and just think too, we're in a society for pop culture that if you're trying to promote a movie, hey, you're trying to see what you can do. Well, make Saturday Night Live this open thing. So if Robert, you're an actor, you're trying to promote your new movie, hey, if you write a great sketch, go to Saturday Night Live, now you get a role and everything. I want to see more competition on Saturday Night Live. I think it
Yeah.
will not just survive but thrive. And I'd like to. I think we've talked about this before. In a world where we've kind of lost our edginess in comedy for right reasons, I like how Michael Che and Colin Jost go to the edge and over a little bit too, because that's what comedy is. I know some of it to some people might be cringeworthy, but again, they're doing it to be funny. They're not doing it as like they're joking. I mean, if they were just making those jokes and you felt they really felt that way, yeah, it's awful. But I liked how it's getting a little edgier, which I enjoy. So
Yeah.
So yeah, very good. So yeah, Saturday Night Live was good. You know me, Robert. I'm into my '90s and 2000 comedic icons. I'm not as into movies as I know like you and Craig are, but when I saw that Conan O'Brien was hosting the Oscars, it got my attention. Robert, can you, before we get to Conan, was there a quick takeaway you can make from the Academy Awards? Like, was it a surprise, or was there like an award that made you happy and proud? What was your like 1 minute takeaway from the awards part of the show?
Yeah, I tend to watch the Oscars because I'm a movie guy, and I like to, more than anything, I like to see movies celebrated. I like to get a sense of like what some of the best performances were, and so I tend to have like a bit of a marathon ahead of the awards where I try to watch as many of the nominees as I can, and and then I kind of, I usually fill out an Oscar ballot. I try to, I make picks based on what my favorites are. I don't tend to do very well, to be honest, because I fill out my Oscar ballots based on, on the movies that I like, and not necessarily movies that I think are going to be the most critically, acclaimed or supported by Oscar voters. And so, I watched most of the movies this year. My favorites didn't win a lot, to be honest. I really appreciated, like, I like movies. I tend have a soft spot for movies about creators and about creative people. And, I like movies about, musicians and artists and even filmmakers. I really liked the sort of semi-autobiographical movie that Steven Spielberg did here recently on. It was, the Fablemans, the kid that wanted to make movies and stuff. I love stuff where sort of passion projects like that. So I was really a fan of the Bob Dylan movie that came out with Timothy Chalamet, as Bob Dylan, and Edward Norton in a role there as Pete Seeger. And that didn't do as well at the movies as some of these other sort of more controversial nominees. We had Best Picture went to Anora, which wasn't my favorite. It's pretty brash. It's a movie about an exotic dancer who has kind of a fast fling, and then and gets married to to sort of the son of a Russian oligarch. If anything, I guess it's sort of a statement about, in some sense, about sort of youth and like rudderless youth, like it just sort of like this party mentality and everything, and not my favorite film. Won Best Picture, won a few others. Probably the big winner of the night was that movie. So didn't really agree with that. I'd watched the Brutalist with Adrian Brody. Fantastic cinematic picture. A little long. Has a intermission in the middle of it. I thought was kind of interesting. Maybe one of the more interesting things about it was this sort of like revival of the intermission in a movie, which I thought was intriguing. But Wicked did Wicked. The Broadway musical based on the Wizard of Oz that is now a 2-part movie. We got the first part of it with Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. That won a couple of awards as well. So it's good to see that kind of movie getting some attention. I've always been a sucker as well for like a well-made musical, and it's definitely up there. I thought Conan did a pretty respectable job as host. He was able to, to keep it light and funny. He didn't shy away from making some jokes, and not all of them landed, but enough of them did. It was a pretty respectable job, I thought.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I'd like to kind of get into more of the movies. I don't watch the current movies as much, so. And that's kind of my thing with the Academy Awards. If I don't know the movies, it's hard for me to kind of connect a little bit. But in terms of Conan hosting the show, I was really intrigued. And I'll be honest, Robert, I wasn't offended or annoyed about Conan. The jokes didn't hit with me as much. It was classic Conan. I loved Conan. I don't know. I think I was expecting a little bit more. The opening, it was who was Demi Moore? She was in some movie where she had like a physical problem or something. I don't know what her physical issue was.
It's not it wasn't a disability. It's like a body horror movie. But yeah, if you don't know what the reference in that is, then it was pretty odd, and it's not going to hit for sure. But no, Substance is a movie about an aging celebrity personality actress who's sort of in these years of her life. She's a host of a sort of one of the fitness TV shows, like what you'd see like like a Jane Fonda's workout kind of thing or whatever is what she's doing. But Demi Moore, for an aging actress, she's still she's incredible. She's an incredible actress. And but she's older now, and so she sort of bravely took on this role of, that's sort of a it's a horror movie, but it's also a bit of a parody, about just sort of the cost of aging and everything. And so there's a drug that you take. Okay, so I'm getting to the point here. It's called the Substance. You inject it. There's all this stuff you do. Basically, what happens is it creates a second version of yourself, a younger, healthier, more attractive version of yourself that basically comes out of you. Like, so it like comes out of the back of her or whatever. And then like, and, and,
Okay.
and has to stitch up the original body and all this stuff. It's very odd. It's a very strange movie. And so they did a parody of that with Conan O'Brien coming out of the back of Demi Moore and then like losing a shoe and having to go in and find it and all that stuff. And very, very strange, very unusual.
Well, okay, once you explain that part of it to me, that's kind of actually funny because now Conan's like, hey, I'm the better looking version of Demi Moore. Like, I'm coming out the back, and that's great. But how many people knew the substance? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I didn't get the premise behind it.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it was a little gross, to be honest with you. And it was funny because during the show, they panned to Demi Moore and she mouthed the word awkward. Now, she was laughing, so she probably maybe she was joking about it, but I don't know. Demi was as into it either. But I thought Conan, he had some jokes. There were some funny parts to it. I don't know. I listened to his podcast and I'm laughing pretty much through it. I didn't get that feeling from the Oscars. I don't know if he just wanted to tone it down a little bit. I mean, there were some good lines he came out with. I thought having Sandler in the crowd and Sandler was interacting with him was funny. I liked how they brought up the firefighters because they referenced, obviously the horrible wildfires that happened over there. And they were like, they made a joke about how Joker 2 was bad. And I thought that was kind of fun. I don't know, maybe I would grade it a B. I like Conan. He could read the phone book. I would like it. I was just looking for more of a laugh riot fest. I guess I didn't get that from the Oscars.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it was just some of it is just that, again, a lot of the movies being honored were sort of the more obscure movies. I think a lot of people haven't seen them. They're more sort of art films. There weren't a lot of like, sort of the blockbusters like being faded here. There were a few like Dune 2, like in Dune Part 2, again Wicked. Pretty blockbuster movie. There are a few they could make some jokes about, but a lot of the sort of the leading nominees were movies that nobody's seen, nobody's really even heard of, unless you're really like me, like trying to watch as many of those movies as you can. You know, um, some of them, like Amelia Perez is a Netflix movie. It's largely Spanish and subtitled. I would imagine not a lot of people watch that. There's a really good movie, A Real Pain with Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg. But I don't think it did. I don't think it had a long run in theaters, if it even got to all the theaters. I think it was pretty like short run, and I probably a lot of people hadn't seen it. So I think the jokes, it's hard to make jokes land about movies that people haven't seen. And I think that was a big part of why some of it probably didn't hit for you and probably for other people. And a lot of the movies were sort of downers this year too. It's kind of hard to make it really funny if the like the movies that are being celebrated are kind of depressing and sad. It's kind of hard to turn that into comedy gold.
Well, I credit the Academy Awards because they'll have Conan and they'll have Adam Sandler. I know like Jack Black has done some funny things, and Will Ferrell and other stuff like that. Couldn't they just have one comedy category? I mean, I know the Academy Awards aren't really about that, but wouldn't that open up? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there should be a best comedy category at the Oscars.
Yeah, and you don't want to make it like the MTV Movie Awards. I know there's a little stigma about the Academy Awards are different, but open it up to more people. I think I don't know, but I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. But I mean, and again, I'm not offended by the Academy Awards or anything. It's just hard for me to connect personally with that. Maybe that's part of it. I feel like this podcast is like your office what do you call it, the new office. It's a source of information, Robert. We're probably talking about this more than any other podcast in the world. Maybe no one cares as much as I do. But I saw some interesting news, Robert, and this wasn't the leading entertainment story of the week, but it may as well have been for me. We were talking about would anybody from The Office come back? And again, in case you haven't been following it, The Office is coming back with a new show tentatively titled The Paper. So it's in the same universe as The Office. The crew from The Office, they did that documentary on The Office. They're looking for a new project. So they find a Midwestern paper that's struggling, like a lot of the newspapers are these days, and they're trying to document what's happening at it. So obviously it makes sense, the old Office people aren't journalists, so you have a new cast. So they've already been announcing some new cast, and we're looking forward to seeing how those guys do. But now we've got a regular who's going to be on the new show. Oscar Martinez, his character in The Office is Oscar Nunez in real life. He's going to play a role in The Paper. Now, they haven't said who he's going to be or what he's going to do. Well, it's going to be him. We're not sure what the character is. I don't think he's going to be a lead reporter or something. I would imagine he's going to be the accountant, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's the same guy. And I think it's intriguing. Hopefully, he don't screw it up. But I don't know. Do you think it's got some possibilities?
I'm intrigued by it. I think that I think it's the time is right to tell this kind of story. I'm glad they found a new story to tell. I'm glad it's going to be largely a new cast. I think it'll be interesting to see how Oscar factors in. I think he's got to be, if he's the same character, I think it's got to be in some kind of accountant role. It wouldn't make sense for him to like suddenly be like a newspaper editor or a newspaper reporter. Like if you're going to bring that character back in, it's got to be in some kind of financial sense. And so, newspapers are struggling financially, so maybe he's there, in a financial, like to try to keep this newspaper afloat some way, as offering his accounting services. I think that'll be interesting to see. You and I, with newspaper backgrounds, of course, we're probably more excited or intrigued about this idea than other people are. I think it's funny that, like these generations, a lot of the kids and stuff today that are still watching The Office and reruns and stuff that are like finding it funny. These Gen Zers and stuff, these millennials that are really into it now. A lot of them probably have very little experience, if any experience at all, with a newspaper. My wife works. She's the editor of a couple of weekly newspapers here in Northeast Ohio, and we went into a classroom this past week and talked to a career class. One of the students in that class was interested in doing something in journalism, and so the teacher called and asked us if we'd come in and give a little bit of a talk about the state of like newspapers and journalism, and and what the opportunities are. And it was interesting to us to the first thing I wanted to know was like what this younger generation, what they think of as news, how they experience news, how they get their news. And most of them had no idea about what a newspaper was. Most of them, we had a student in the class who literally opened it and was like, because my wife said something about she had given out papers and said turning to a certain page, and the student didn't know how to do that. It was like some technology that was like foreign to them, but it's just a matter of just opening the pages and turning to that page, and it was kind of funny, but also being a journalist, being a newspaper person, pretty disheartening, to know that they don't have this experience with it. And so, maybe telling this kind of story, maybe to revive some interest in the industry and the profession, the news profession. I think it's a good thing. I'm excited. I can't wait for it to come out. I think it's ingenious too that the first Office was about a paper company, a paper making company, paper salesman, and this is about a newspaper. And for them to title it The Paper, going from like Dunder Mifflin Paper Company to The Paper, the newspaper. I think it's a pretty smart move.
Well, I'm hoping, again, being a journalist, I'm hoping they touch on the online part of it, because a lot of news organizations they has some type of an online breach, and everyone has a different opinion about how to do it. So hopefully, if they keep true to journalism, there's some reference to online stuff. Alaska Daily, the show I really liked on ABC a couple weeks back. Well, it was a couple years ago. Obviously, they dealt with Alaska newspaper, but a lot of it was like, oh, we're putting the news online and how it's work and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. Oscar, I think it's going to be neat. And again, Robert, don't forget, this is a comedy show. I mean, we're not going to delve too deeply into papers, but I think maybe in the first show, explaining how they got to the newspaper might be a great role for Oscar. Because before, like, how are you going to do it? What do they do? Just go online and they start calling people and they got hold of them? Well, who knows? Maybe after The Office wrapped, Oscar moved across the country and, maybe he called the company and said, hey, I like what we did last time. Could you come do one on us? Or something like that. I'd love to see how they merge everything together. How did we tell a story? How did they find this newspaper? And, maybe Oscar's role is a way of doing that. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think they ever really got into other than this was in the original Office, there was just the documentary crew that became fascinated with telling the story about these people that work at a paper company. But I think it'd be kind of interesting even if they did a bit of retconning with the story, and maybe what they were all interested in all along was this accountant, and maybe maybe the reason why they went to Dunder Mifflin was because of Oscar Martinez, the accountant, and maybe that's why maybe now they're like, okay, what's Oscar doing now? Let's follow Oscar. And maybe that's the whole thing. Everywhere he goes.
Everyone wants this crew to talk about their company, but they're like, oh no, we must bring back somebody from our own company. You must hire Oscar if we're going to come do a show on you or something. I don't know. It would be interesting. I wonder too. I'm glad that this isn't like Frasier, where Cheers ends, Frasier moves, and now the show's called Frasier. They're insisting. They're saying, okay, Oscar's going to be a regular character, but he's going to be a regular character like he was on The Office. Like the show definitely wasn't about Oscar alone. I love the fact that it's going to be an ensemble cast. But could you imagine that? If you became Oscar or something like that.
Oscar, yeah.
Or what about this? Just think about what was it? Law and Order. Sorry, it was Law and Order. Now we have SVU, and we had some gang Law and Order. What we should have done. How about this, Robert? You're going to turn the camera off, so don't stay with me on it. This is a weird idea. We could have had spinoffs from every character, so we could have had Oscar and Pam and Jim, and just everyone has their own separate cast and everything. And now we have 20 versions of The Office at one time. How about that?
Well, I think it's what's funny too, though, is we talked about this too, the fact that different countries have their own office, and so and so in a sense, after The Office before The Office in the US, there was The Office UK, and if you look it up now, it's just if you look it up to find it, stream it or something on TV, it's called The Office UK, and then there was The Office US. And now apparently there's an Office, The Office Australia, I think that's doing well in Australia, which I haven't seen any of it, but I think it's kind of interesting that there's each country sort of has their own office, and so they could have done like you said, Law and Order, SVU, Law and Order, whatever. They NCIS, they had different NCIS Miami and New Orleans, and they had all these different shows that started to do that, spin off into other places and stuff. They could have done The Office LA or The Office Tampa or something like that. They could have tried to do something like that. I'm kind of glad they didn't, and they're telling a different story. Like I said, I think it's smart. I think the way they're doing it is smart. And I had always said, if they're going to do something, make sure you have a good story to tell. Do something different. Do it smartly, because there are so many of these movies, that you can basically say are Office spinoffs. In a sense, Abbott Elementary, it's like done in that mockumentary style. That could be almost like The Office, but in an elementary school and stuff, and they did Parks and Rec was kind of like The Office, but like in a the Parks and Recreation department and stuff. They've done that before. But you just sort of hope that they keep the same the same sort of spirit alive, but tell it in a different way with a different story and a different cast of characters.
Yeah, I like Abbott Elementary, but I'm not a teacher, so I'm not like, running to watch it each week. I wonder if like the new Office was in a motorcycle shop or something I'm not as excited about, if I'll be as into it. But I love journalism, I love The Office. To me, it's like, it's almost like they made it for me, which I'm sure they didn't. But
well, I'm sure they did. They were like,
yes,
this show we're making specifically for Chris Pugh.
I bet it'd be great. Well, we're hoping, and Rob, you would definitely be into this because you're a journalist. About half the people who regularly appear on this are journalists. So I'm trying to figure out, once we hear more about when this is coming out, we need to do a episode by episode right after it happens. But again, I'm hearing sometime this year. Again, this is our fun part. We have jobs and other stuff going on. So let's figure out when it's going to be on. But I'd like to do something right away instead of our typical, hey, let's review the show 30 years after it appears. But no, I think it'd be great because I think we already have some journalists that are on. And I'd like to try to reach out to old journalists that we have run into. Robert, how about that?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think we could we could start a whole new podcast that's just based on this show, The Paper, and all of our experience and
Yes.
all of the people that we've met, all the characters that we've interacted with at newspapers over the years. Oh, let's bring back some of those old indie reporters and editors, huh? Let's see you and I.
Well, here's my thought. Look, I like you guys. That's why Rob and I talk all the time. I don't think you met him, but Guy Vogren, we do a lot with him. I used to work with him at the Warren newspaper. There's a couple others that have regularly been journalists and friends of mine. We got to bring back the awkward people, Robert. I'm not going to mention any names, but some of the awkward people.
We're thinking of some of the same characters. Yes, I can tell. Yes. I know that we are. I know that you and I are thinking of some of the same characters. I know you don't even have to say names. I know exactly what you're thinking.
Well, maybe some of the people may not be the best choices, but like there was a guy in Warren, a business manager that we weren't the biggest fans of, but there wouldn't have been big issues. We were like, well, maybe he could be a guest on one, or something like that.
Yeah.
You've got to bring back the people that you would love to be on, like you and everybody else. But we got to bring back the awkwardness. The people that maybe we didn't always see eye to eye with. I don't know.
Yeah, the Dwights of the world, in a sense, like the ones that were problematic. Sometimes those ones that for sure.
I am intrigued, and I kind of wondered too. It was interesting when I joined the TV station I'm currently working on. They actually put a link to my podcast, so people have. No one's come up, no anchors have come up and say, "Man, I listen to you guys all the time." So I'm not sure if anybody's, but I've heard references to it. So maybe we can even get a TV person. I'm not sure what their policy is on appearing on podcasts, but yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to it. I guess the only thing is my schedule varies a ton, and I think it would just depend on what day it is. But I would say we should commit maybe at least the same week. Like if it comes, maybe if it came out on like a Sunday night, maybe that's a bad night to podcast. But maybe we say, hey, the episode will be up by the end of the week. Ideally, you want to do it like the hour afterwards. But again, with my work, who knows anymore. But but no, I'm looking forward to it. So again, we might be the only but that's good though. You know what I mean? We can't be like the podcast that if you podcast about something everybody else is podcasting about, what makes you different?
Right,
so maybe we'll be the only ones or one of the only ones. I'll make it really exciting.
Let's we'll have the official the Paper podcast. The Paper podcast with Pew.
Paper podcast, PPP. How about that? Hey, a couple of things I want to touch on quick. I have not thought of American Idol in a long time. Remember when it came out, it was like water cooler discussion. It was like, oh, we got to sit around and, talk about like Simon and all these other people and everything. I'll be honest. I don't think I ever told you about this. I had a really eye-opening moment. Like, Idol was kind of fun when they would bring out the bad characters and Simon would make fun of them and everything. And you had a lot of give and take. About 8, maybe 10 years ago, I was covering a American Idol, what do you call it? A casting call. It was in Columbus.
Yeah.
So, and none of the, uh, it was like right before the TV casting call. It was like a preliminary. So none of the, whoever the hosts were at the time were there. But they put me in touch with like the big producer that was there. And he was talking to me. Do you know they intentionally don't do any bad characters anymore?
No, I haven't followed it. I know that there hasn't been as much attention paid to it. I think maybe I got a sense that they were doing less of the sort of like the mocking that they were
Yeah.
doing for a while. But no, I mean I didn't realize it was. I guess I didn't realize it was like a pronounced shift or whatever. I haven't paid enough attention to American Idol in the past few years,
And that
past
was
several years.
Yeah, oh, me too. And that was an interview I did with a guy 10 years ago. Who knows? Maybe they kicked him out and say, hey, let's bring back some of the mocking. But I haven't noticed as much lately. And I've stumbled across some of the more current. I would watch it for a couple minutes at a time. It was more of the enlightening stories. I think like Katy Perry was on it. I think she just left. Just one of the original winners is now on it or something. I don't know. Who knows? But I'm trying to figure out, is it worth bringing back? I mean, they're still doing seasons, they're still doing episodes. It was funny on the news side. I work for ABC affiliate, and we worked the night of the Oscars. And, in news, you think of, okay, the news starts at 11 p.m. So we have to be on our toes if it starts late because of the game or the Oscars. We're like, oh, man, there's no way it's going to be done on time. Oscars always goes long. They actually put American Idol, the premiere, for a half hour after the Oscars, and it kind of gave us a little pause, going, "Oh man, we're going to be here all night. What's going on?" With that. But when they put a show there, it's kind of like we're trying to showcase a little bit more because the thinking is everyone's watching the Oscars, or they're going to hang out to watch American Idol. But I haven't heard that much buzz about American Idol other than what it meant to our newscast that night.
Yeah. Who's the last idol who of that came from the show that made it big? I can't even think of it. I can't even think of anyone. It used to be, that the idol winner, like you'd hear about them all the time afterwards, like the big ones, like Kelly Clarkson, was she the first winner? And she has her own talk show. Was she
Yeah.
she was one of the first ones at least. She's of course made a career for herself. And then it seems like every year there were some there in the beginning that Clay Aiken and some of the others, I think, that maybe even weren't winners, but got a lot of traction off the show. And I can't think of anyone.
I gotta find it. I remember, I think it's before we podcast together. I got a chance to talk to Clay Aiken and Ruben Studdard on an interview like this for the podcast once.
Yeah,
it was okay. Clay was ready to go at the end. Clay was like, "Yeah, we got some more interviews." I'm like, "All right, Clay," but it was kind of interesting. 2 Idol, and I'm not sure if they're winners or not. Do you remember Taylor Hicks?
Oh yeah.
I guess up in your neck of the woods, or I think it's halfway between you and me, from Columbus to Canton. Isn't it like Sugar Creek or something? They've got a big theater down there. And now you're seeing some more rock acts being down there. It's kind of the middle of Amish country. Like Taylor Hicks is coming there pretty soon for a concert.
Oh, so, yeah.
I don't know. No offense to our friends at Sugar Creek, but usually when you're appearing at Sugar Creek, it's different than if you're appearing at, it's not the biggest venues up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Taylor Swift isn't doing Sugar Creek.
No, she's not. No.
But God bless Sugar Creek. They're bringing in some acts. Good luck to Taylor Hicks. I don't know if you ever heard, and I don't know too much about him, to be honest with you. Colton Dixon, he was on American Idol before.
Yeah,
I think he was in the top 5 one year. My daughter wanted to go to a concert, so I took her to this big Christian music concert in Columbus at the big arena, and he was one of the acts there. And I saw him, like, oh, he was on American Idol. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know much about him. Didn't know much about how many the acts there, if you want to be honest with you, but it's kind of weird. But
I think more than I think you hear more about The Voice anymore than you do American Idol. I think maybe that's going to taken a lot of that. And even like America's Got Talent, you hear more about that than I think you do American Idol. There are some of these sort of like shows that definitely, if not spinoffs, like they were, they came out of the American Idol era, these competition shows looking for stars and stuff. And I think some of them have kind of overtaken American Idol in popularity. Um, I and maybe it has something to do with the fact that people used to watch American Idol, um, for the mocking and for the jokes and stuff like that, just to like be able to sort of laugh, at people who thought they were talented but clearly had been misled by friends and family into like thinking they were this big star and stuff, or we're going to be this big star. There's definitely some humor there. And maybe that's why idols like faded in the cultural zeitgeist. Maybe maybe the people just aren't watching anymore because it's just not funny.
Yeah, I just don't know. And I guess, reality shows they're cheap to make. So I don't know if American Idol is in grave danger of being canceled or anything. But I mean, it's cheaper than just doing a random, drama or comedy where you're paying somebody $1 million an episode, I don't know. It is what it is. It's just a little unfortunate. I mean, I never was a humongous Idol fan, but when it first came out, my wife and I were on the couch watching it because there was a lot of pop culture nature to it too. I'm not into who's the best singer, but seeing Simon and who's the dope Ryan Seacrest yell at each other and Paula doing her thing. I mean, it was just always interesting to watch, man. It's a little unfortunate it's not there anymore. All right. Well, Robert, we have to have it out. You up for you got a little bit more time, right?
Sure.
Okay. Homeland. I got a text from Robert. And again, I wasn't offended, but Robert was a little miffed at me. We were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and it was interesting. I made the comment. Again, I've been in and out of Homeland. It's kind of like Seinfeld. I actually got into Seinfeld when the finale was on, and I kind of went back and watched different episodes. But it was hard for me to judge the whole map of Homeland or Seinfeld. I mean, there's a ton of episodes I enjoyed of both. It's funny. Brody was a huge part of Homeland. And again, spoiler alert, when Homeland first started, Brody was this American agent. He was captured. He was held in the Middle East somewhere. They brought him back. But then the thought was he turned? Was he now a foreign agent? Was he going to be a terrorist or something else like that? And then, what's the actress name?
Damian Lewis, the actor.
Well, yeah, Damian Lewis, but the woman.
Claire Danes.
But what was her name in the show? Was it?
Carrie.
Carrie. So Carrie is the American like FBI agent, I think.
CIA.
Oh, CIA. Okay. And Carrie obviously wants to stop terrorism, but she fell for him and he fell for her for a while. So for a couple of seasons, you're right. Big deal, important part of the story. The show was kind of known as will they or won't they? What's happening and everything. And you got upset because I was like, hey, at the end of season 8, we're all good. Everyone's happy. And you're like, you just watched old Brody get hanged in Iran. Yeah. Was he hanged in Iran or Russia?
Huh?
Where was
he was hanged in Iran.
Iran. Okay.
Iran. Yeah.
But the funny thing about it was I kind of jumped in and out of Homeland over the season 4 to 8. So I don't know if there's episodes where Claire was like thinking fondly about Brody. I don't know. But it was funny because for as massive as he was to that show, I mean, he was like on the main cast, he probably on all the posters and signs advertising the show. You didn't hear much about him. And I was thinking about this after thinking about your text. How many shows were like that, period?
Yeah.
Like even comedies where, it'd be like Seinfeld if, George died in season 2 and they went and did 10 more seasons without him. It's just kind of weird. But it was interesting. So I definitely understand your feeling. And I'm sorry I overlooked Brody, but that's what happened there. Did you give up on Homeland? Or are you
I haven't given up on it, though. I have lost some interest in it. It's not, I'm not as like invested in it as I was before. Because I told you, like, you said like, oh, it's going to end well for everybody, like everybody in the show. You're telling me this. I'm in the middle of like season 3, and I'm thinking, okay, things are going to turn around. We're going to get this redemptive story for this character. I felt bad for the guy. He went through a whole lot. And certainly he made some bad decisions and things. He made some bad decisions. He paid a price for them. But I thought, here's a soldier, held captive for all these years, tortured, and facing a lot more sort of, uh, challenges, when he's returned to life in the U.S. And I thought, there needs to be some kind of redemptive story arc for this character. And you're like telling me like, oh, it's going to end well. It's going to end well. And then the guy gets hanged in the last episode of season 3. And I'm like,
5 years ago.
what? So
Life
no,
goes
yeah,
on.
and I
Life
get it.
goes on.
He's not even in. There's 8 seasons of this show. He's only
Yeah.
in 3 of them, and he was like, and like he didn't even appear in every episode in season 3. Like he was kind of in and out of it. So like he was the main character for 2 seasons. I get it. He wasn't a huge character. I thought he was. I thought he was going to be a character like for the run of it. And because like even like because I'm watching it like on streaming and stuff now, and he's on the cover, like he's the picture, like when you like the thumbnail or whatever for the show, and you click on it, and like like when it gives the description, he was the central character, and so yeah, I was a little taken aback. I thought for the longest time I'm watching it, and I'm like, this is not real, this is not happening. Like he's going to get rescued at the last minute, so there's going to turn it it's going to turn out that they faked his death or something. He's going to come back. No, no. 3 seasons and this guy's out, and there's like, just move on to the next terrorism thing. And it was surprising to me. I'm less invested in the show now because I'm struggling to sort of like find the person that I'm invested in, and I was never really like, obviously Claire Danes, as um, in that Carrie role, as the CIA agent. She was never my favorite, and she's of course
Yeah.
continuing on. And and I, she plays a CIA agent who has a sort of an OCD, like a bipolar disorder, and so she's polarizing, to say the least. And then, I like Mandy Patinkin in that show. I think he's a pretty good character. He's a great actor. I always I've liked him in a lot of different things. But yeah, I'm in season 4 now, probably halfway through season 4. I had to kind of look to see what people thought about season 4 and whether it was worth continuing it. I saw a lot of people saying season 4 is the best season of Homeland. And I'm not getting it so far. I've lost a little bit of interest. It's lost a little bit of spark for me, I have to say.
I will say, and while you were mentioning this, I was looking up Damian Lewis because I wasn't sure why he left Homeland. Like, was there a contract dispute? Why did he leave the show? I'm looking at his 2013 interview with Entertainment, and they said they pretty much told him at the beginning of season 3, hey, we're gonna kill you off. So, like, I thought maybe, because I will say, and again, I haven't seen Homeland for a while, so someone might be out there going, "Duh, there's a real big part in season 4 or 5." The show was interesting, good, but there was no overriding. Hey, is Damon Lewis is a big terrorist? Is he and Carrie going to run off together? I didn't see as many of those. What do you call it? Storylines.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
season 4 through 8. So, yeah, I mean, I would still watch it. I think
yeah.
it's interesting. I actually like 24 better, and because I'm a goober, and 24 was weird,
I
but
like
there
24.
were still good parts of the show. I'll be honest. When I mentioned it again, I should have remembered Brody, which I didn't. For Carrie and Saul, I liked the ending. It was good. I man,
I think
maybe
probably what happened is like a big part of like my disappointment and
well, you're a huge Jimmy
my
Lewis.
reaction to it. A big part of my reaction to it is that I came to Homeland from Billions. I
Yeah.
followed Damian Lewis from Billions to Homeland because I thought, I like this actor. I want to see more of his stuff. I thought he was really good in Billions. And of course, he's not in every season of Billions either. Like he takes a break there, like from acting and left the show and then came back again in the end. And I like Billions a lot, and so I started watching. I was looking for another show that had multiple seasons. I was looking for a show that had 7 or 8 seasons that I could just binge watch. I was looking for something that I had missed the first time it was out. It was popular, but it sort of missed me for some reason. I know people were talking about it, but like for whatever reason, I didn't have that channel at the time, or something like that, and I just, I'd always meant to watch it, but I never got a chance to. And so Homeland fit that for me, and it fit that for me in a large respect because I was following some of those actors from the show I had just finished. And then, yeah, I'm sure that contributed to what my reaction was, because it was like I'm only watching the show for this actor, and now this actor is dead, and there's 6 more seasons or 5 more seasons of the show. Like, should I keep watching it?
Yeah. Oh no, no. I totally get it. And Claire Danes, she's not my favorite. And again, I've got a lot of empathy for people who go through mental health issues and some of the depression she goes through. And she played that role well. I will say my favorite actor in that is Mandy Patinkin, because I believe he's Saul. I mean, I know he's been done other shows and other movies and everything else, but when you see him in that, you're like, oh yeah, that's Saul and everything.
Yeah.
You can totally buy into him as a character and everything.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, he's my personal favorite part of the show. All right, I want to end up. I mentioned Severance, but I've got a broader point to make here. Apple TV. So I like the NFL Plus app. The NFL season's over, which is good. It was depressing. So I canceled my NFL Plus. So I use that money to get the Apple TV app. And we've been talking about some of the shows on there. I've been anxious to catch up with it. So I've been kind of trying to do my best to catch up with things. A couple really quick mini reviews. Let me know what you think. I'm in the TV news business now. So the morning show was intriguing to me. Obviously, I'm in a decent sized market in Columbus, Ohio, but obviously I'm not in New York City. So there's a lot of differences in apples and oranges there. But I like the morning show. It does a pretty good job of kind of going through all the stuff that happens at a TV news channel and some of the politics and everything else. I think it's good. I don't know. I've kind of stopped watching it for a while, and I've been meaning to get back into it. I think probably my favorite TV journalism right now was on Amazon, The Newsroom with Jeff Daniels. Isn't that what it's called? Yep. I like that. I thought that was a little bit more realistic. I like the fact that The Newsroom kind of dealt into news issues, too. Sometimes the morning show gets a little bit more relationshipy, which happens everywhere. It's not a bad thing. But I want some news nuggets in there. It seemed like the Newsroom kind of dealt more into the daily newsroom issues.
Yeah.
I will say, and you're going to laugh at me when I say this, Severance, I started to watch the first episode. I was having a hard time understanding it. Here's the problem. I like editing podcasts. I like doing other stuff as I watch TV. I think Severance needs to be a little bit more focused for me so I understand what's going on. Is that where I'm wrong, or am I just not paying enough attention?
I think that's fair. I think Severance is a thinker show. I think it's a show where you can't sort of like watch it like you can't kind of like half watch it or like or kind of passively watch it like while you're doing other things. You kind of have to pay attention to it because there's a sort of a lot of details in it that are really important. It's also one of those shows. It's sort of the brand of sci-fi where it's like it's not meant to make total sense. It's kind of like out there, it's if you try to like put it like in a realistic sort of like view it through sort of like a lens of like this realistically happening, there's so many things that you could like criticize it for, but it's it's definitely one you sort of have to like suspend some disbelief with. It's set in sort of a dystopian kind of like like future, or maybe it's like almost present, but like sort of like a near future dystopia where where this corporation is like has this like massive control over its workforce, which like it's hard to believe that, maybe not too hard to believe that if you work in an office where you feel like your bosses are kind of like almost dictators in a sense. But but it's an out there sci-fi show. It's sort of meant to be confusing in a way. Like that's part of like maybe the appeal of it. It's almost like like Lost in a sense, where like it was just, you're not supposed to like get it all. Like if you're watching it to like get answers to everything and to understand everything perfectly, you're not going to really get that, and so it's not going to be satisfying for you. But if you're willing to just sort of like you know be confused and sort of like scratch your head and stuff while watching this, like there's some really entertaining performances happening there. Like the cast is really really good, like Adam Scott and John Turturro, and just like there's some really fantastic stuff going on there. I'm in season two. I just watched the first episode of season two of it, and I need to get back into it. But I appreciated season one. Season one ended with this maybe one of the craziest cliffhangers I've seen in a long time. And so season two picks right up where it left off. I need to get back into it and watch it. My wife and I just started watching the latest season of White Lotus. And so that's kind of taking some priority for us right now. There's 3 episodes of that out.
Interesting. I'm wondering, for me, and again, this is probably just for me, I need to focus on one show. Like, so watch the morning show or watch Severance and just get through it. And then if I'm like, oh, this totally sucks, just say, okay, I'm out. Let me pick another show. Because right now I'm watching like 3 or 4 things at once, and it's tough. And I don't know. I'm into the Traders. They just had the season finale. It's really interesting. And I like Deal or No Deal Island. It's a goofy show, but doesn't take itself too seriously. And honestly, if you're in politics and you don't take things too seriously or any other thing, I'm on your side. I like people like that. That's why I like Conan and other stuff like that. So I also like Deal or No Deal Island. Robert, and we can be brief about this because I know we both need to get going on the Friday day. It was interesting. I saw a story, I believe on CNN. I sent you a link. Wolf Blitzer has been in a lot of movies. He's the longtime CNN news guy and everything. I don't know. I mean, we're both journalists by trade. I'm sure there's a lot of ethical discussions that like you can get into with something like that. I don't know if it's wrong if you're a journalist to appear in a movie like that. I'm really undecided there because in some ways I'm like, that kind of lends a reality to a movie. If they're watching the news, now it's like Wolf Blitzer talking about it. It's a movie. It's not real, but it lends more reality than having some dopey, guy you can't believe is a news anchor on something. But then part of me, I go into the old school person that goes, "Hey, you're a newsman. You should not be in a movie. You should be, stick to the real news." I don't know. It doesn't bother me to see him on the show. I think it's just kind of interesting to see him on a movie like that.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. Like you said, I think that what it's meant to do is to sort of ground some of this stuff in reality. I think it makes most sense, when they're kind of sort of in the background on a newscast. Like you have characters who, are forefront, like at the front. They're doing their thing, they're acting, and you see in the background the TV's on, and there's a newscast or something like you're in the Avengers or something, and you have newscasters are talking about, oh, disaster in downtown, and all this stuff, like this stuff is happening. It sort of lends a bit of a realism to it, to see someone who as that, as a news anchor doing that in a movie. I think where it gets a little fuzzier for me is when they do it like it's not in the background so much, and they go on, and maybe they're a little more out front with it, and they're doing it almost in a sort of mocking comedy parody type way. I think I have more of an issue with that sort of thing than I do just like seeing a news anchor doing a news anchor thing, but talking about news that's happening in the movie, in the background of the movie. That doesn't bother me. I think that's almost like, it's almost like a prop, or like, it's like it's just sort of setting the scene. And like you said, Wolf Blitzer's been in some TV and some movie shows and stuff where he's in the background. Um, and he's, the story you sent me says he's still collecting royalties from appearing, and he can't be making too much money off of some of these, but like, I guess, anytime someone pays to watch Shazam Fury of the Gods, maybe Wolf Blitzer gets like $1 or something. So he's in some good stuff, he's in some stuff that's not so great too, but probably I guess he appears in there's a new Netflix series with Robert De Niro in it, that's maybe a little like Homeland, or a little bit like 24. It's called Zero Day. It's about an act of terrorism in response to that, and I think he makes an appearance in that one.
I actually saw an episode of it. It was like a limited series. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I spoke with my company. I was thinking about doing a freelance. I'm not appearing in movies or anything like that. But, they talked about, as long as it's not competition. And I kind of wonder about the same thing for CNN. I mean, I guess, does it make CNN look bad? Like, if Wolf Blitzer is like chasing women around the movie, does that make CNN look bad? But if he's in there just doing a regular newscast about, something happened in the movie, would it be okay? And in some ways, wouldn't that be better for the brand? Because if you're in a movie theater, yeah, you're not like, oh, Wolf Blitzer's in this movie, I'm going to watch him on CNN now. But wouldn't that draw you more towards CNN? I guess if you're watching, you think about, is that like a good promotion? Maybe.
Well, I think in a sense it is. I think, I think they probably, like, when people think of like cable news, they want people to think of certain personalities, certain anchors and things like that. And so just making that association. So like, if, you're someone you're a kid who watches, the Avengers or something like that, and you see like somebody like Wolf Blitzer on the TV, like doing CNN or whatever, you're probably not going to necessarily remember that, but maybe you have like maybe it's in the back of your head, and so like you're like flipping through the TV or whatever, and later on, like after watching this movie, and you see the same guy, and you think, oh, that guy, I noticed that guy wasn't that guy on the Avengers, and maybe you stop for a minute and you watch Wolf Blitzer. I don't know, maybe it benefits, maybe it helps the brand in that way, just to have that association and that recognition.
Now, if Wolf Blitzer like joins the Avengers in the middle of the movie, maybe that wouldn't be as good. Or maybe, you never know. Hey, CNN guys in the Avengers, that's great. Wolf Blitzer beat this guy up. Wonderful, awesome. So sounds good. All right, well, man, I think we've been for everything in pop culture, right?
We covered the whole thing, all of pop culture. Yeah, we didn't miss
all of pop culture in the past 5 weeks. We've touched on that. No, there's more, but that's why we have to come back and do this again another time. If we covered everything, we might as well, say farewell. But no, we're coming back. So all the stuff we're supposed to say as podcasters, I'm not good saying it. Give us a like, subscribe, tell your friends. If you don't like this, what Robert? Let's think about it this way. If someone listens and said, "Man, I don't like this," send it to someone you don't like. Say, "Hey, check out this podcast." I mean, we just get a podcast, everyone. If you hate listen or love listen, it'll be really great. Anything going on, Robert? You want to promote or say hi to, or I don't know. Just give me a chance to say whatever.
No, I didn't prepare anything. I don't have a clip to show or anything like that. I'm not promoting a new movie or new TV show or anything like that.
Movie you're in, Robert. Come on, would be good. Yeah, I didn't have it either. I just kind of came up with something on top of my head. Hey, if you're in Columbus, check out ab6onyourside.com. I've got a couple stories on there this week, and we produce TV there. And you might be like Robert, he's like, I don't live in Columbus. How can I watch it? Well, we have a watch live tab on the website. So if you want to see the type of stuff we're doing, you can watch the news live wherever you're at in the world. How about that? So, all right. Well, for Robert, this is Chris. Thanks for checking us out. Have a great day, everybody.